Okay, now we're recording. It sounds pretty quiet. Most everybody's quiet on the call, so as long as everybody's in a quiet space, I'm going to go ahead and keep it open for. I really want to have things where we can, be more participative to the extent that y'all may want to share something, because we really are attempting to ground all of this new energy and these new creations in ways that we can be more participative in. And I do appreciate that, so many of you have really enjoyed the information that I've shared, either through the email with astrology writers or whatever has come through just with me, Spirit giving me with the call. But this moon really is setting up, and it's the opening of how we're going to start manifesting our lives from here on in the future. Don't look at the external world of form. It's going to fall apart. 100%. Do what? Would you say 100%? No. Anyway, but it's really true. I mean, and you're going to continue to have all of the what I call MK Ultra programming things going on. It's the constant, control manipulation that's been going on for, all of our lives. As long as, I'm 57, so, this has been going on, with the mainstream media sources, all the big, it's so vast what's happened. And what's happening is it's also all unraveling. There's so much dynamic that's going on with all of it. Excuse me, this cough. And so one of the things we talked about, who was it? Someone mentioned earlier, LaDonna, you've had an illness the last couple of days. We're really detoxing a lot. Like a lot. And there are days, I remember when Jude would talk about, she was just feeling like, she's at the end of death, just, constantly, just dramatically. But it's really true. I've been in that for the last, week or two myself. It's like this, it feels like this dark, dense energy. And it is here. And it's here to be owned. It's here to be transmuted. It's here to be moved through. And we have to do that individually and collectively. And you can't give away something you don't own. Jude had said that umpteen times. And so where we're at on a big scale, Pluto and Aquarius, it's just left Capricorn. All the structures have been hit on the atomic and subatomic levels. I'm talking about the micronic part of who we are as an existence has been hit with all this energy for the last 16 years with Pluto and Capricorn. But now what's going to happen with Pluto and Aquarius, this is 20 years. This is the first new moon in Aquarius since Pluto and Capricorn. And what it's doing is seeding what I think is the Aquarian age. Now, Aquarius basically has a couple functions. It's an air sign. It functions as an air sign, but it is water. The basic word Aquarius means water, aqua. And so I think both of those things are functioning together energetically for the next 20 years to act as oceanic presence. So really Pisces is oceanic presence, but Aquarius, I think it's how we perceive ourselves. The Aquarian age, we always talk about, they're talking about technological advances. We're talking about huge innovations. We're talking about huge shifts in the way we perceive ourselves. I meant to send a link to Pam Gregory's video, her latest video, too, where she talks about in this moon. You can check some of the previous emails I've sent out to check with her. But, she's really just been writing some amazing things with what we're doing. But the Aquarian age is really about everyone. It's how we perceive ourselves and the other. And I don't know if any of you are having that happen in your own lives with dynamics with family, friends, whatever. But there's something about where we can't see things just as ourselves anymore. We have to see ourselves as part of the whole, and that can either be within your household, it can be within the place where you work, it's any dynamic, your churches, your communities. There is no separation, at all. There never has been. But what's really going to be put into our face, especially this year with the new election cycle, with politicians and the whole structure, is that, yes, those people are there, and they're doing whatever they're doing. And I mentioned this in the last call, and Spirit's really doubling down with me on this, and it's a major point that we have to take in, and we have to know it. Each one of us is embodying the deepest capacity of our soul at the current progression of soul, wherever we are. And 8 billion people, that's a lot of unique expression on the planet. And it's hard to know that no matter who's out there, especially in the political arenas and the business dynamics, people that control business, all these kinds of things, each one of those people are also in their free will choice, playing out their karma, playing out their life path. Doesn't matter who it is. No need to name any of them. It could be the Trump or the Biden. It could be Democrat, Republican. None of those things exist. And when you go deeper into who we are as human expression, I think that's one of the hardest things to really remember, is that this whole world is play. The only reason something has a value is because we project value onto it. Politicians are there because, this goes on for eons of time. It's just morphed over, centuries. But they're there because they wanted to control populations. As a general rule, you would think that everyone could be here. We could all love each other, and care for each other and be in a community, support each other, food. Things used to work that way to some degree. But there's always been a control, greed, manipulation that's been projected onto humanity for a long time. And Judith and I had talked about this over the years when she was first explaining to me how Spirit took her into the vastness of creation. Spirit took her to that very moment of the precipitation of humanity, where it was like there was the seed of the Adam Cadman body. So you'd have divine perfection as God would perceive him, herself, the all that is, as a human. So when you come in as a divine expression, everything is in perfection. And what happened is you go through all these different falls, and this has gone through Kali Yuga ages. This has gone for a very long time. And it gets really complex when you go into the mixing of the races that have come in and messed with the planet and all these things. But the point is, all of this is in our DNA. And all of these things have to be cleared out. We're doing it individually and collectively in our own ways, but some people have basically, when we come in, we always have free will choice. And as you're a child, when you're a baby, you're just this ball of energy that's coming in pure awareness, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're looking at the world and thinking, this is crazy. There's so much happening out there, and how do you respond? Well, when you're a baby, there's no form. Even the body is not fully formed yet. People talk about the way that the physical expression is of a child. The actual skeletal system of a baby doesn't really go into solidification until much later, in its infancy, and it's very still hyperfluid. So it's like when we're coming in, you've got that new birth, and you're allowing yourself to take in everything around you, and everything's a frequency. So if you come in and you're born into this planet from such a place where there's a lot of densification that's going on in the world, that frequency is going to take you into that density really quick. If humanity at any given point throughout the time-space continuum, which is basically all but broken down now, which kept us in linear time, if you think about being born into a time period, and you've got what has been our karmic accumulation up to that particular point in soul growth at any particular point when you've been born. Because, I mean, we've got all these accumulations of souls. You've got it depends on who articulates this, but I do think this is true. I think we have 12 souls operating at any one particular time within parallel reality. And then the 13th oversoul, which guides us all back into what would be, I think, the pure atom cadmium body. But it's like we've got all these different aspects of ourselves that are playing out. And I think these things cross over in our dream states. I've had some just amazing dreams where there was one dream where I knew I was in Australia, and we were in these flight suits, and there was me and this other guy, and we're just sitting there. It was like a small plane, and it looked like a regular aircraft, but we just went in, and I said, "You ready to go?" And he said, "Yes." And we looked at each other, and we looked forward, and just our energy fields merged with the plane, the whole thing, and we just shot off like a beam. I was like, where did that come from? So it kind of was like, imagine that we are so powerful as quantum beings that there's an aspect of us that is so pristine and clear and pure, and we don't carry the densification, and yet we can do something like that. And most people wouldn't consider even such a thing being true. But if you look at everything that's put out through television, movies, everything comes from somewhere. Some idea that some writer had came from somewhere. Everything exists. And if you really take in the idea that we live in an infinite universe, that's really hard for most humans to, I think, contemplate. Because if it's infinite, then it's like, what holds us into this structure, whatever that is? Now imagine that we've gone through, especially like since the 2012. I mean, most of us, I think, worked with Jude, during that time period. Of course, many of you have worked with her for 30 years. But 2012 was this whole big thing where, the world's going to change. The Mayan calendar's ending, the Maya. So the illusion, the Maya, is going to disintegrate on itself. In a way it has, but it's always been doing it. There was something about that time period, though, between 2012 and now. We're now in 2025. That's 13 years. So if you go 13 years between now and then, 13 represents the Christic energy. I think we're really in the time of embodiment from when the Mayan calendar ended. Now, in truth, time doesn't exist. It's a construct. It's been projected onto us for a long time. We've been playing out our realities depending on the karmic inheritance we had, the genetic inheritance, our family inheritances. And if you think about what that could look like, sometimes we've talked about that, sometimes we haven't, but if we've lived many lifetimes, we've lived probably many places on the planet. So imagine living in China, 700 years ago. Imagine living in Germany during Nazi time periods. Imagine living in England in 1200 AD. With all these different unique levels of human expression. And all of those were a frequency that in those particular moments of time were an accumulation of the energy that we have been all the previous time before that. Some people have talked about their soul incarnations when they were in Atlantis. Some people talk about Lemuria. They've written these things out, there have been books published, and they would talk about how they felt in those time periods. Each one of these civilizations went through huge falls. Judith took me into one of my Atlantean times. I had no idea. She didn't know what it was going to be, and I just started articulating. I was sitting there on a coast, and I'm going down in fire because I was one of the original people that started working with crystals and really activating the use of crystals in congruence with the earth and how we were manifesting things. We really messed up back then. And today's world is really no different from when we've had any of the huge jumps in time. And I don't know if any of you have really seen some of these posts like lately on Facebook. Facebook's been amazing for people that post things, but there have been a lot of undersea technology, or not technology, undersea archaeological finds that have been found in the last few years. And they're all coming up with these, just like, oh my gosh, that already exists in other places. Like, I think it was in Lake Michigan. I think there's a Stonehenge under the sea that's just like in England. You got pyramids coming up all over the planet. There's so much archaeological work that had been done to tie in the different time periods we've lived here and energetically what those things meant. When you tie all of this in also and you look at free energy, this is the other thing that's really happening that I think is going to happen in the next 20 years. Nikola Tesla talked about free energy forever. The architecture that was on the planet, we had all these steeples on all the churches. They were on the top of buildings. All of that harnessed energy from the field down in through the building. So if you're in these buildings, you're in these structures. It's like you are. It's like you become one with the external energy, with the field. And I call this the morphogenetic field. Well, everybody else, but if you're not familiar with morphogenetic field, go and look that up. Rupert Sheldrake, brought that in. But the deal with this is, so we're in this time period where we've got this new moon in Aquarius. Pluto has just entered into all of that. Pluto is death, transformation, all this kind of stuff. At the same time that's happening, we have, and I'm going to go, some of you already heard some of this, but I'm going to go over the big parts for the people that haven't been able to be on the call. But we got Neptune and Saturn have been in Pisces for the last few years, and they are going to be ingressing into Aries over the next year and a half permanently. That's a back and forth energy. And I think it's hard for people to really feel into what that means. Neptune is the dream, it's the illusion, it's the delusion. We still have had this polarity reality that's happening. So for everything that's dark, everything is, there's a light and dark. There's always this thing playing back and forth. All of this is happening at Pisces Aries, which is the alpha omega point of our zodiac. So and some people, I think, have a question about what is the zodiac. Well, the zodiac is 12 signs. 12 signs of 30 degrees each, making a full circle, life going full circle. Aries, 0 Aries is the beginning of zodiac, and 29 Pisces is at the end. It is the alpha omega point of our existence within the third D reality. Now, it's interesting because I've been working on this huge chart. I mean, I'm really close to sending this off to Astro Danced, I think, but it's been a 2-year process of pulling this whole chart. But I've learned so much about what we're doing and what's been affecting us. And Spirit's taken me into this. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? And ask yourself about this for everything that's ever happened in your life. let's say you had a thought that you wanted to go do something. Where did that thought precipitate from? Did you choose to go to a certain college because there was something in the city? There was something with the college? Where was the pull from within you? And is it something that was suggested to you by someone else? Is it something that was a primordial need? Oh my gosh, I must go do this. It wouldn't have to be a college. It could be a job. It can be your spouse, any of your spouses, if you have different spouses. There's always something that we have to look at and say, why did I make that choice? And when you really start to go into self-reflection, this is, when the unconscious is attempting to become conscious. We start consciously working with ourselves, the progression, soul path, to find out what we're doing, where we're going, and you go into a place where it's almost like you cocoon. You stop acting out of a place of unconscious, where you're always looking to be met. And Jude talked about, do what?
I'm listening.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they can hear me.
Yeah.
Because I'm really interested in this. You spilled your hot chocolate.
Oh,
On the bed, Phil? Everything on the washing machine. Is it on your bed? No. Oh, good.
No, I was training. Go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and...
No. It's like...
Okay. I thought there may be a little bit more exchange between us, but there's so much information that really has to come through. I think we'll just have to keep it that way. And the calls actually do sound better through the mutation because it's a good, cleaner energy. There's not as much static. Okay, what was I talking about? This is the other thing that's happening to us. It's like we're out of time and everything, the mind just goes away. I can have a thought 1 minute and then it will be totally gone within seconds, and I can't go back to the thought sometimes. I let it go and just stay in the moment. Okay, where was that? Gosh, it's like when I'm in this field and mode, I can't even, it's so hard to keep. I guess I just got to go back into the field. Okay, well, I guess it'll come back around. I guess we're talking about, between conscious awareness of where we are at any given moment, and if we're either unconsciously just moving through life because we're in reaction to circumstances, or if we are really being a true master and creating from a place of heartfelt awareness of that particular moment. And Jude talked about this for all these years, and it's really true. It's like what is a part of us that's in reaction to our world, and I've had the last 16 years, and this was my Pluto in Capricorn. It's like I had my wake up call, and this all began really with the Pisces. It was the last time Pisces. The Pisces Virgo axis was activated back in 2005. So these things do go in cycles. They go in periods. We've now come back to that. For those that haven't heard that before, the nodes, the moon's nodes, basically they go along with the path of the moon, and of course the moon always affects our emotions. The moon's nodes is our emotional expression and how it plays itself out. And they go through each sign about 18 months. And they've just come out of Aries Libra. And to remind everybody, Aries Libra, Aries is the I am presence, the individual I, in direct opposition to Libra, which is the other. The other can be anything you project the value onto it to be. Libra is either the main relationships in your life. It's God. I mean, if you see God as the other, the bigger part of who you are as an expression is the individual expression, then Libra could also be God. Libra is anything outside of what you think yourself to be as an individual expression. So that's a big deal. And when I articulate it and define it like that, it can take you into a much more vast awareness of who you are. And so if you really sit and contemplate that, then you're not necessarily just the relationship that's more predominant in your life. It could be the spouse, family, friends, brothers, sisters, business, whatever. Our relationships come to the forefront in our life to bring awareness to whatever it is that we need to see in that particular moment, based on the progression of the soul up to that particular point of time. So let's say that you may, in this particular year, be dealing with a sibling, a child, whatever it is, whatever the other relationship is that has taken a priority in your life to be looked at, is wanting to take you to the deepest part of yourself that you don't want to go see. If you look at it like that and you consciously dive in and ask yourself, what's important here? What am I learning to glean from this? What wisdom wants to be known? If you look at the other person and you look at the dynamic of the relationship, is it tornadic? Does it start at a single point, and does it get really wide? And does it have this energy where it doesn't have to be good or bad? Don't place a value on it. But if it has this deep polarity where it's bringing out some part of you that just has to express itself, go sit in that. Don't necessarily act out on the impetus of the energy that you're feeling. So energy's a two-way street. There's the part of you that's being activated, but there's also the part of the other person that's being activated. Now, I bring this up specifically in this particular point of time for this reason. As we go into these dynamics of the next 18 months, this is the Pisces, Virgo, lunar nodes. This is our emotional expression. And you look at it in the external world, all this 3D stuff, especially in the political stuff. If you just see your friends on Facebook, notice how people go into a deep polarity regarding their belief system. And this is a really important distinction here. So if you observe what's happening out there, I mean, I've got twins. There were twin girls here in my own hometown that I went to school with. One is extreme liberal over here. The other is extreme conservative over here. They are playing out their stuff on Facebook. It is the most bizarre thing. I mean, it's sad. But here's the thing to observe from this, though. If you go into such a deep belief system because of the way you're conditioned, they both went to the same schools, both in the same areas here, but the life paths diverged. They each took a different place as they went through the progression of the soul, as they went through the aging process. At their core, they're still sisters. And this is true for every single one of us on the planet. I mean, it could be me and, Andrea, Carolyn, LaDonna, it doesn't matter. Pick whoever the other is. So we each have the stuff that's projected onto us through the educational systems, through anything, our family, our friends, religious, all that crap. That's what's being asked to be released of every single one of us, all of it. Literally put everything that's been projected onto you in the trash. Now, if something feels just in your core, just viscerally, that you need to express something, that's going to come out. If it's expressing with a polarity, you're an antenna. You're a two-way antenna. You're also a transmitter. You're transmitting a frequency, but you're an antenna and you're pulling back in. You're going to get a feedback loop. If there's something that's still within you that is coming in through a relationship, if someone is projecting something onto you in relationship, you have to go in first and look at it on a deep level. That person's there to throw something at you. You don't have to take it. That's theirs. Whatever's coming out of someone else is their stuff. You don't have to own any of that. If you're in reaction to where someone is, that's yours. The reaction is yours. Go into your heart and soul for whatever it is, whatever the topic, whatever the energy is. This is where we're invited to go in, transmute whatever's there in reaction. Because we're really taking ourselves back to a 0 point here. Now, if you've been on these calls, I've been doing these calls we're almost at a year. I started it literally on the first lunar eclipse on March 25th of last year. Well, we're coming up on a full, that's wild. I can't believe that. Time's flown. But the point to this is this. On this new moon, really set an intention that you want to release every single thing, every construct, every idea, every feeling, all the baggage that you've ever held, all this. If there's anything left that you really want to throw on the cosmic fire, this is the time to do that, because this is pure seeding of your new reality. And, some people say, well, why is this time as opposed to the last time, as opposed to this time? And I'll also say this. I mean, so many of these astrologers, when they're writing about something, this event's this event's this. Yes and no. It is, and yet we'll also always have a new beginning of this and this and this. Technically, every new moon is a new beginning. Every full moon is a release. That happens every 2 weeks, like clockwork. So we could project the value onto each of those and say, oh my gosh, this new moon, it's this. We'd be doing this every 2 weeks as far as the cycle goes. But when you look at the energy of everything that's happening around that moon, there's absolutely some moons that are big deals. This one is, and again, I'll go back to the reason for this. It's because it's the first new moon in Aquarius. Aquarius is what we perceive everything else to be, I think, as a social framework. Yeah, let's call it that. So each of us as presence, 8 billion people, are here in the world of Aquarius. Imagine there's this big oceanic presence out there. And we're sitting here, we're floating in this. You've got Neptune going back and forth between Pisces and Aries, the alpha omega point of existence. You've also got Saturn going back and forth. Saturn's the work we come here to do. It's also the baggage we carried around. This is also all the genetic inheritance. The reason this is such a big deal, and they're working together, and there's no surprise at this at all. Saturn is basically working with Neptune to break apart the old dream. Neptune is also the new dream. It's both. So we're each at an alpha omega point of our own creation, while we're also participating in the alpha omega point of all of oneness. Everything. Because there is no separation. So we're learning to initiate ourselves as the highest expression of who we are individually, but also doing it within the group of the other. That's happening on many sub-levels. You're doing it within your family. You're doing it within your city, your state, within the business you work in. It doesn't matter. No matter what you're doing, you're always in relationship. We're never not in relationship. The key is to get to the point where we are so deeply grounded in our I am presence. Doesn't matter who we go, who we see, anything. It's like we are a sturdy rod standing there, no matter what's going on around you. It's like, you're firmly grounded in who you are. There's no more reaction to anything or anybody else out there. You let reaction go. And that's the deeper work that we come here to do. Because any of the reactions are hitting subconscious places that we haven't cleared out yet. And once you really go in and own all that, you're in good place. Now, if you're on this call, then you've already done the bulk of that work, I believe. What we're doing now is going into deeper levels of refinement. So imagine, we're all, in this carbon-based reality in the earth, and we're being squeezed like diamonds. That's really what's happening. It's this small, incremental just shifts of everything. The other huge thing that's happening that some astrologers talk about, but that most aren't, and most don't, I think, have a really good understanding of it. When I've been doing this work with the astrological chart and the zodiac, and really understanding things, there's one really big predominant player that is underknown. Nobody knows much about it or talks about it, and that is Lilith. Now, there's a lot of Liliths out there. Depending on where you're at in your knowledge of mythology. And actually, before I go into this is something to really think about as you listen to any character in mythology that's had a value of, placed onto astrology. And again, this kind of goes to what comes first, the chicken or the egg. But Spirit's taken me very deeply into this from a standpoint of who are we beyond, this world, but who are we beyond astrology? The astrology always feels so accurate. From people that really go into it and can bear out, I think, the depth of what's happening with bigger transits, especially the big players, all the big, the big planetary stuff and whatever. But I say this for this particular reason. Are we who we are as an expression because planets are playing out? Every astrologer that you ever would talk to will sit here and say, oh, you had this and this and this. Oh, you had something like this. You had something like this. They're talking about general energies based on what they see in the chart and the way that we have been conditioned to believe the way that planets work and the way that we are in the universe. Now, planets are all of that. Then you've got the mythology that's projected onto all the planets and objects. You've got 10 major planets and points, the moon, the sun, and then the main planets. But then beyond that, you've got several dwarf planets. They've been talking about that more and more and more, which is deeper consciousness. These are places where we're really being awakened deep in our core. And so these dwarf planets really represent who we are really deep, really deep. There are also, they talk about the centaurs. Mainly Chiron is the main centaur that's talked about. Chiron is the wounded healer, half man, half horse on the bottom. So it's like this dual life that you live from the wound. There's the core primordial wound that's brought in. The balance to Chiron is Chariklo. Chariklo is another centaur that has a more soft sense. The two of them together I think, kind of work together in a healing energy. Chiron is in Aries. Chariklo is in Aquarius. There's no mistake there. Pluto's going to be going through Aquarius, for the next 20 years. I don't remember Chariklo's orbit, but I think she's far enough out that Pluto will go through while Chariklo is sitting in her spot. I'll have to check that. I never asked myself that before. I need to go find that out. The point to this, though, is Chiron is in Aries, which is the I am presence. So it represents the primordial wound of every single man, woman, and child on the planet. That's been going on since 2018. So we're attempting to heal the wound of ourselves. And that's going to go through 2028, I believe, by the time it passes retrogrades and gets into Taurus. But so everything in Aries is sextiling everything that's in Aquarius. So our I am presence, whatever is going on in your Aries house, is going to be sextiling, which is, it's a workable energy. There's still some more work to do. It's not like trining energy. Trines are flowing energies. But sextiling energies are still very workable, a little bit more hyperfluid, but they're a little bit more detailed work than trines. So you've got those energies playing out. In addition to those two centaurs, I have 16 other centaurs that have been pulled and tracked. They all represent some different type of wounding in each individual, but also within the collective consciousness. I'm not even going to go into all that. So you've got all that wounding going on. But this other part, let me get back to this, is Lilith. And in the myth, I know why I got sidetracked, was the mythology. So we've got the myth of Lilith. Basically, you had Adam and Eve in the garden, and Lilith gets, sidestepped, and then Eve comes in and, takes Adam. You get all that stuff going back and forth. And of course, the Bible writes about its version of it, Christianity. Everybody takes their version of what that looked like. But Lilith is this repressed part of each of us individually, but also collectively, where it's kind of like it's the wild, and I'm going to go off of myth because I'm going to go into what Lilith gives me as an expression. Lilith is that wild, primordial, divine feminine that got crapped on. She was supposed to be partnered with Adam, and then of course Eve comes along, and then you got all that, and you get the sin and all this kind of stuff going on. But Lilith was the one that was, just tossed over for that. And so most people don't understand how Lilith works in the chart or in the zodiac, but I have charted Lilith for the last 2 years. And I made a point by week. And what I ended up with was this, it looks like a zigzag back and forth, and she goes across 2 signs at a time within a year, actually begins in a sign even before that. But she's traversed 4 signs partially within a year time period, but really works on 2 major signs. Last year was Virgo and Libra. This year is Libra and Scorpio. And she's already gone into Scorpio this year. She's back in Libra now, but she's going to, during this first eclipse series, she's going to be going back into Scorpio. But she literally straddles the lines between the signs, and she'll move huge, monumental amounts all the way through. And so any astrologer that's used Black Moon Lilith as a point, there's a mean Lilith, they call it, the average point of Lilith in that path, and they say, oh, well, here's your Lilith. But that's not true. If you're looking at the actual function of Lilith is I wish everybody could see this. This is when you use a hand gesture in your body. But imagine you were like Jude used to do. Put your hand up, and you flow your hand in front of yourself like water. And so you'd have this energy that goes back and forth, and it vacillates. But it would also be like a snake. So you've got this slithering energy, but imagine that Lilith is slithering now through the zodiac. She's going between Virgo and Libra all last year, and she's going back and forth between the lines, and huge undulation movements. This really is more representative of being able to go in on a core level and feel your way through whatever it is you're in. That's what a snake does. It feels its way undulating along the ground or a limb or what have you, or through water. Water even more interesting, because water is just hyperfluid. But Lilith is going to be doing that for all of 2025, going through Libra and Scorpio. Scorpio is that part of our house. It's all the dark. It's the hidden agendas. It's the dank, dark parts that you don't ever want to see about yourself or somebody else. But with Lilith energy so deeply in Scorpio this year, it's going to feel individually and collectively like a Bardo state. And I've said this before, and I think this last year was also part of it. Of course, she went into Scorpio at the beginning of, let me see. Yeah, during the eclipses of last fall, she started going into Scorpio. So you had all these lies coming out, all these half-truths that are being unearthed. That's how, obviously we see it on the news, through political stuff, but it's really going to just fall apart this year. I mean, Lilith just takes over the whole sign of Scorpio from about this eclipse coming up in March all the way to the end of the year, basically. And so she's undulating all the way through everything within humanity. So we have an individual Scorpio placement, whatever that is, but we've also got it through the whole zodiac. All 8 billion people are going to have Lilith going through Scorpio. Now, the way that Spirit kind of takes it into me, we came here to transmute all this old 3D energy. We came here to heal ourselves. We came here to be in deep embodiment. As she takes us into this is primordial awareness. That's what Lilith is speaking to me about. As she does that, she's going to have to take people to their core. That's going to be all of us. Now, if you've already done the core shadow work, it won't feel quite as bad. Lilith can take you into the really, really deep primordial essence of who you are as an expression, so that you actually can come and embody your highest potentiality, and you can create in your higher potentials of whatever you came to do this lifetime. It's going to be unique for every single person. There's 8 billion out there. If people, however, have not been doing this inner work, then I have a feeling you're going to find a lot of people feeling like they're going to go through like a dark night of the soul. That's what this is going to feel like this year. Do not attach to everybody else's world falling apart. Do not get caught up in the trauma drama. Do not be pulled in. Their undertow energy will attempt to bring you down. Don't go there. You did not come here to do that. We are here and we're witnessing what's happening in the world, but we did not get brought here in this lifetime to get caught up in the trauma dramas. That it's not going to serve you and it's not going to serve them. We came here to be the embodiment. We came here to be the Christic energy at our highest potentiality at this point. And of course, it's going to depend on where you are in the current progression of your soul. How much of the genetic inheritance and ancestral inheritance have you healed? So, but it's going to feel like a Bardo state. So, that's what I was going into a while ago. For those of you that don't know, a Bardo state, kind of more like in Hindu traditions and Eastern cultures, is when you are basically done here in this physical life, you go into, a lot of people call it a 72-hour transition phase. It's where Spirit takes your soul, the all that is takes your soul. You go in and have a recapitulation of your life. And you get shown where you could have made some better choices here or there, and then you move along through the progression. But you do this before being taken back into the all that is. The soul is still here in the physical body, but it goes through this recapitulation with God, however you want to call that, before releasing this physical and then going back into that. So we came here to be here and not have to necessarily go through physical death. I don't know what that's going to look like. We'll see. But I do think that we've got all this innovation. We've got this technology coming out. They're talking about medical advances we never dreamed possible. All that's going to come out this year too. So, and again, with the lightest of the light creations, you're also going to have the darkest of the dark. Some people are going to be creating so much light that you're going to be blinded by the wonderful things that are going to happen. Those things are going to be the parts that we'll be able to work with ourselves and heal the physicality, all the parts of ourselves that have gone into lower function, lower frequency expressions. Again, everything's a frequency. Some people will heal with sound energy, music. Some of it will be light technology. A lot of people use infrared. Some people will use other light wave frequencies to go in and heal people on deep cellular levels, with that. I think there's additional technologies that have not been really released to us yet. I think all that's going to come out. And part of that is Lilith going through the Scorpio. There won't be any secrets anymore. That's what I like. And this year, and this will actually go also into the first part of 2026, because Lilith will also be going into Sagittarius, but then we'll keep snaking back in Scorpio until she's done. I've not charted 2026 yet, but the point to this is that we're going into a place where secrecy never served us anyway. If you have a secret from anything or anyone else on the planet, it's only a place within yourself that you are living in shame. We didn't come here to be in shame. It's like we all came here to certainly have the human experience, and we've all made decisions that were like, oh my God, did I really do that? And that's another thing. Even for myself, I've wondered sometimes, how on earth did I do such a thing? I would have never been a person that would do that or do that. It doesn't matter what it is. But the point is, humans do that. What is the energy that is within us on a cellular level that makes us create a distorted thought form? What is it within us that makes us create a miscreation? What is that? Some people would say, oh, that's the devil doing it, this, whatever else. Well, yes and no. There's part of it is a karmic outplay of how we have to go through and experience something, because there's still some polarized energy in us that has to be released, or some karmic balance in the accumulation of soul in past lives that have to be cleared out in this lifetime. A lot of people are writing that this particular energy, in this energy, karma is gone. Cause-effect reality is over. You're only in immediacy. And this is what, the ones of us that have taught with Judith for years, she taught that. Everything's immediacy. It's how you heal. When you go into immediacy, the past doesn't exist. So anything that you're feeling within the physical body, it really doesn't exist there. It does because it's there in the physical, but you can go in and transmute any and all energy that leads to physical disease patterning. Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, they all talk about these types of things. This is when you go into transcendence. It's why some people, you can either go two ways. Doctor says, oh, you've got cancer, you've got a growth here, you've got this here, you've got this here. This person goes through the whole cancer regime and the tests and the treatments and whatever else. They end up getting sick disease patterns and die off. This person over here, diagnosed with cancer, oh, well, I'm not going to identify with that disease. They go down a completely different path. They're deeply immersed with spirit, the entire invisible world. They go in, they go bless the entire world around them. They stay the blessing. They stay in this pristine awareness as much as they can. They quantumly shift their cellular structure within the body. Belief is very powerful. You either believe yourself into health or not. But then here's the other part to that. It's not a black and white deal. You can't just go into the belief system and say, oh, that's true. You have to go beyond the surface until you get to the core of whatever it is within your template that brought the disease pattern. You cannot go heal that. Otherwise, what you're doing is looking at the mental part of what someone tells you. Oh, just sit there and think this and it's true. Yes and no. Judith had always said this, and it's really true. I mean, she took me very deeply into this with Spirit several times over the years. You can't give away something you don't own. So if you've still got some deep place within the core of who you are that sees yourself as less than, if you see yourself as sick, if you see yourself, it doesn't matter what it is, take whatever that is, go into that. This is the time to do this. And this is the initial moon to set the intentions for creating your new life. This upcoming eclipse series it begins on March 14th and it ends on March 29th. And there's a middle point in there, March 22nd. I call that the alpha omega point of the eclipse energy. Different astrologers talk about the eclipses. I call it an eclipse window. During that eclipse window, it's 2 weeks. It's powerful. It's potent. You can absolutely shift realities and timelines within the eclipse window. That's why this call is so important, and I just really encourage everybody to get on that could, because even as you're hearing all this, it's what you're hearing now resetting a part of your DNA. I don't know. That's not for me to know. I can sit here and suggest things to you to go in and look at for yourself. Am I healing you? I'm not healing you. I'm not doing anything to you. If you're healing in some way, you are healing you. This is a core difference of the way that I'm working and the way that a lot of other people are working. Like, I mean, you've got some people that you would work with, like Jude. We'd go in and do sessions with her, and she would go in and hold a frequency for us. We had to go meet the frequency. She wasn't necessarily healing us. We do the healing work. Yeah, I mean, she would say she's working on it, and to some extent, yes. But she was holding such a high, pristine awareness frequency when we were in conjunction working with that frequency, opening our hearts and allowing that frequency to come in. Our bodies, our hearts and souls had to go match to the highest part that our soul expression could in that particular moment. In that moment, our frequency changed and shifted to meet where she was. She wasn't doing anything. That's presence. That's primordial awareness and presence. Now, she created a disease pattern in her own body and self. I liken that to the Lazarus material that talks about everyone has a blind eye, deaf ear. Every single human being. She had hers as well. And she did so many other deep things with helping the planet and humanity in general. I mean, she took me into several of these things. We've discussed several things, but did some of those things assist in creating a disease pattern? I don't know. Part of it was genetic inheritance. Her father also had a cancer in the face that she also ended up having. Was it a fait accompli that she would end up leaving this life cycle through the disease pattern, even though she went through all of the other enlightenment she went through? I don't know. When I went through to do research on these types of topics, there's a couple books out there that are written on enlightened people, the Krishnamurtis, the Adyashantis, whoever it is, Ram Dass. A lot of these people have already left in the physical. Almost no person, Yogananda, any of them, they came here, went through enlightenment, they still left in the physical. Because of where we're at now, have we reached a point maybe where we've had the 100th monkey, and we'll now start to have some people that can live in transcendence of the physical death patterning? I don't know. That's one of the things Jude says she always went in to clear on the collective level of the humanity templates. So I have no idea. But what I do know is that so many of these people still took on cancers. They still took on some other death pattern within the body, even though they reached amazing states of enlightenment. They may have done that in such a way because in those particular timetables that they were here in the embodiment in the last 8 to 10 decades, there may have been so much deep transmutation that had to be done that they did that work. That was their sole purpose. They came in and they left and took part of that in the physicality through physical death. I'm not sure. It's so vast when you really get into all of this. The main thing, though, is for each of us to know where we are at this particular point of time within the progression of our own soul and what's playing out in the world. And again, for this year, 2025, one of the biggest things is going to be is to be able to stay in your heart, not get accessed by anyone else out there trying to trigger you. If you're still triggered someplace, you still have some work to do in that trigger. Go dig into the trigger. It is not the other person. Everyone is going to be projecting their crap onto us. It's going to be a shit show for the next year and a half, I think. Again, imagine everyone having to go through the deepest soul recapitulation, but doing it here while they're still alive. Imagine you had to go face God. That would be the Scorpio part of yourself. Lilith, which I perceive as deep primordial divine essence, the divine feminine, but she was scorned. She's going to be going through, in third dimensional reality, the Scorpio parts of ourselves individually and collectively. What's that going to look like? I don't think it's going to be pretty. I hate to place a value like that, so I shouldn't. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. Whatever it is an illusion. It's not real. I don't care what Donald Trump does in office. It's not real. I don't care what Putin does over there in Russia. It's not real. It is real to the point that people buy into that reality. I'm also telling you there's a whole nother reality level that is coming into being. It's never not been here, but it's kind of where the bifurcation is. Different people talked about the bifurcation of Earth, and there really is a bifurcation of human expression. So it's a separation. So it's kind of like as long as you place your awareness wherever you want to place your awareness, that's what you're going to create. Imagine you're that powerful as a creator. So and I think I mentioned this in the last, in 2 weeks ago in the last call, and this is really, 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 really true. And I think it behooves us all to always remember this, because it's a core facet of our human expression. We each come here. We each come with our own individual genetic inheritance, ancestral inheritance. We're each all trying to clear that. I don't care who you are. I don't care how enlightened these people are, some of them. As long as you're still here and you're physically breathing, living in third dimension, you still have work to do. I don't care who you are. Now, as I say that, it's also a free will choice universe. While people have been here this lifetime, there are places where if the soul was really weak and it went so far away from its divine, pristine awareness and essence, if the forgetfulness went so deep, you're still going to have people playing out right now all of the darkest of humanity that you could never ever really want to ever dream into existence. There are people here that can still operate like that, and they're still doing it. And God doesn't stop that. God doesn't make choice, doesn't say this is better than or less than. There is no better than or less than. It's just an experience. There are some people that still have such deep karma stuff they've got to play out, and they're going to play it out with each other. To the extent that their souls can step into a higher timeline to try to make some big, huge decisions to shift their own personal karma, but also shift it within the collective. And this is where a lot of the politicians are going to play out their biggest parts they've ever played out on a theater stage. That's really what's happening. And it's not real. That's the biggest thing to remember. And I know people are going to be like, well, how can you say that when it's, people are dropping bombs here and doing this here? Yes, it is. And this is the physical third dimensional world. It's happening on Earth. Earth is still going through its own ascension, though. There are things happening on this planet that are taking the planet itself into higher timelines. I will also say there are weather patterns that are playing out. You've got snowstorm going across New Orleans with 12 inches of snow. You've got hurricanes going through North Carolina. You've got now a big hurricane going into Ireland, all this kind of stuff. I hadn't looked to see how it played out. But the point is, there's these extreme things that are happening. Because of the technological things that I have read, because of patents that have been taken and have been signed out through the U.S. Patent Office on weather modification technologies, all I can do is just suggest to you, go dig. I'm not here to make a claim one way or against something one way or the other. But there's all sorts of cloud seeding. They do it all the time. They can steer weather patterns. They can do all sorts of these things. And I'm not here to just, throw that out. But I'm here to put it out there to say, if you have extreme things happening, we have to ask ourselves, is this Mother Nature doing something to us, or is this the darkest expression of humanity playing itself out? And as I say that, remember this, and this is really core and key. As light as you want to come here and play on the planet, there are also other human beings that are put here. They have been allowed to play within reason as dark as they wanted to play. That is the hardest truth for most human beings to go face. And I'm telling you, almost everyone in the good old boy network, that's what I've called it for years, that's what everybody else calls it. If you're in the political arena, if you're in the business arena, now not all business people play this way. But most, if you've gone really deep into control, greed, manipulation to sell your soul for money, you went really, really deep. And when you are into that level of the dark, your soul really is playing in some really not so great frequencies. And I'll say it would seem almost impossible for those souls that have been in such recalcitrant, creations to even redeem themselves. We're even being asked to give that up. Don't project a value onto it. Don't think that you know what's happening in the progression of any other soul on this planet. All you know is you. You have no idea what a Donald Trump is doing. You have no idea what a Joe Biden or Hillary, any of these other groups. Those are just politicians of the United States. We won't go into the political structures of every other nation around the world. We don't hear about those because the mainstream media in the United States doesn't share. It cherry picks what it wants to share about the rest of the world. But you won't hear about, all of the enslavement of, these poor kids in mines in Africa. You won't hear about, awful conditions in third world countries down in Central America or South America or India. I mean, India is such a small space to have 1 billion people, an eighth of the Earth's population in that small country. I can't imagine the densification of the energy, the concentration of each of those people having to live next to each other. I mean, can you imagine being, all these ants in a hive, 1 billion of them, and they're people, they're human expressions. And so you've got all that energy entanglement, all just living right on top of each other. I can't imagine for one moment how anyone that's here in an Indian, in an incarnation living within India, I would imagine that's very stifling. I imagine it's very constrictive. I imagine I don't know. I've not been there, so I can't obviously articulate something with it. But just to have that density of souls in one spot is a big deal. China, 1.3 billion. China is a much larger area than India. But, and again, here's the uniqueness of that. Every single soul that's here is here playing out the genetic and ancestral inheritance through lifetimes. This goes back into Lemuria. It goes back into Atlantis. It's the Mayas. It's the Incans. It's all of these civilizations that we've lived, and we have to play that out in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, I've talked about that on global scale. Let's go, this is still global, but let's go back to something more immediate for us here in the United States. United States is going through the Pluto return. Pluto is in the place where it was back in 1776. I mentioned this in the last call, but it's really important during this call. When you go into the bigger picture of humanity, but you look at it from a United States standpoint, and you look at the big points of how the United States has played out a role as a group of collective consciousness, whatever souls were involved at those particular points of time. 1776, you have revolutionary wars. You had it in this country, you had it in France. Between England and the United States, we went away. You have an initial energy, and it played out for like 10 years, let's say. You also then had a lot of sublevels coming in that wanted to take over the population of this country. If you go and you do some searches, you're going to find in the late 1800s, you got some stuff that was happening like 1860-ish. And then you've got like around 1915, lots of big changes were happening. And it's not necessarily what has been given to us in our history books. I'll just say go dig. Go check into Tartaria. Tartaria actually, if you go look at the definition of Tartaria, Tartaria, it's old world stuff. I'm going to let you just go dig. But there's suggestions that life may not have been quite as bad in cities during that time as you would think. Energetically, I think it was a very unique time, but there was a suppression of all the free energy, and all this coincides with Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan taking over control because they wanted to sell energy, electricity to the masses. And that's when Tesla's energy was squashed, and you've got a lot of stuff that was going on. And you had World War I. It's a big deal. So that's a darker plutonic play out of American energy. You also had the 30s. The 30s was nasty Pluto energy all around the globe. I mean, we know what that all led to. It led to Great Depression here. It was precursor energy leading into World War II. And you had these magnamaniacs that were just going crazy between Hitler and all the other ones. It was control domination. But it was a few people at the top making chess moves that were affecting entire populations. And so when you look at that energy then and you look at that energy now, there's definite places with that. If what we put out into the world, we have to get back. If you look at astrology will tell you how that can play out. A Pluto return in the United States, and Pluto can't return for 248 years, so it won't happen to any of us in our particular lifetimes like this. But nations do have Pluto returns. Imagine that we get back what we've put out, especially in the last few years. And the people that have been in charge of politics, again, there are a few people at the top that control everything. And they want to project a value on countries and say, well, if you are a citizen of that country, then that's the way you think. That's your president. And that's not true. If you go into the core of any group of people, and I don't care what nation it is around the world, I think the bulk of humans want to live here in peace. I think that I think we all are conditioned by our own cultures, conditioned by the religious belief systems, whatever it is. We've got the locality of what we were born and raised into, and we take those on. But beyond all of that, I don't think that we as a culture are putting them in position to kill people. And I think that they know that. And I think that's why the next wars they're trying to do is obviously technological, because you a computer won't talk back to you. It's why you've got drones, you've got all these things. So if you got a few people that you can condition into the war world, then you're going to create warring stuff. You can destroy and obliterate other countries just based on the push of a button through technology. So you don't need the people necessarily to go out there anymore and do all of that. But if you look at World War I and the level of the delusion, because it is delusion, and they were able to delude other people because you didn't have the internet. In today's internet world, we talk to each other in other countries. We know we don't have to fear most people in other countries. It's the regimes at the top that control and do all these things. I don't think we'll ever find another time where they're going to be able to go in and have a draft of human people, and those human people, hundreds of thousands of people, go kill each other. I think we're beyond that, and I think that they know that. So I don't see that happening for us. But if we look at what has been done in the name of the United States, we may have some challenges come forth for us within this year, especially with Lilith and Scorpio, because even nations also have to go through a bardo state. We have to recapitulate the creation within the subcontext of whatever groups we're in. So sometimes it's family against family, sometimes it's city against city, nation against nation. So these are all sub-levels of who we are under the human umbrella. And sometimes there's most of the time, there's some really deep, heavy, miscreated energies that have been perpetuated against other nations, against other peoples. Those things all have to be brought into karmic balance. Now, we are leaving cause and effect reality. We're going into just immediacy. But there still has to be a quick, I don't know how quick it's going to be. It certainly it's going to be faster, I think, than it usually would have. I think the next year and a half through 2026, when Pisces and Saturn finally get totally in Aries for the new start, without going back into Pisces, which is the old story. And it's like we're going to go back and forth. We're going to get the best that we can get from Pisces, the old dream. But Pisces is also spirituality. We're going to be doing deep diving, individually and collectively. Basically, it's going to be having come to God sessions. And I see people doing it individually, through nations, through cities. Whatever subgroups are there, they're doing the same thing we're doing individually. And so that's why this is such a big time period. I think the next 3 eclipse cycles are going to be, because they're tied in with Lilith in Scorpio, I think they're going to be just portals to aspects of ourselves that we didn't know were there, individually and collectively. We'll see how it all plays out. But even as I say all that, and I don't need to take that into just darkness, because it's not darkness. It does not have to be our reality. It's a sub-reality, and it's imploding on itself is what it's doing. And yet, we are so powerful that we can create. We're creating the new earth. We're setting the energetic template for it right now. But you're doing that with your consciousness. You're letting disease patterns go. And everything you heal for yourself, you heal for your genetic and ancestral timeline. So all your ancestors, if you've got all these child pedophilia groups, all these people that have really done dark expression, I mean, that abuse goes back lifetimes. And part of that was introduced from the dark races, the Alpha Draconians. I mean, I could go into, I'm going to go there. But the reptilian race, when it really got interspersed with humanity, to some dark places. And then you add the Alpha Draconian stuff, the really deep stuff. It's amazing what we're attempting to clear out of the DNA. I'll just put it that way. And yeah, so again, that's been a lot. I did not imagine going to some of that where I went, but I just get out of the way and go where Spirit takes me. So a couple of things. I've sent this in the email. I just sent it 10 minutes before the call. So a couple of things to note here that are, I think, big energy points. David Crook, one of the astrologers, wanted to talk about the supermoons for 2025. There's only 3 this year, but one of them happens to be this first solar eclipse on March 29th. It's at 9 degrees Aries, and it's a supermoon. Of course, Aries is my sun sign. It's where my Chiron at 0 degrees, everything is there. So that's probably why I'm having these discussions. So that's a huge point, and of course, Aries is the beginning. So that solar eclipse is happening at the beginning of the zodiac, at the alpha point. So it's only 9 degrees away from Pisces. So imagine the zodiac was like a donut, And right there at the top, you've got Aries on this side, Pisces on that side. And there's a portal going between those two. That's almost what this feels like, is we're leaving one reality going into the new reality. I think for all intents and purposes, that's what it is. Then there's another new moon not too long after that, April the 27th. It's at 7 degrees Taurus in 46 minutes, and that's a supermoon. Even though it's a new moon, it's still a supermoon. Supermoons don't always have to be full. Now, what that one says to me, it's a new moon. So that's new creations. Full moons are releasings. So that solar eclipse on March the 29th, that's a full moon. Huge releasings. I think major shifts. But this new moon on April 27th, the second supermoon, that's going to be big new beginnings as well, based on the remnants of everything we do between now and then. And so we're going to have that eclipse on March, the window. I call it the whole window because the whole thing is active. That's going to really shift a lot of our reality. So it's going to be interesting to see where we are going into the new moon on April 27th. But again, 7 Taurus. Taurus is grounding. It's earth energy. It's at, relatively closer to the beginning of it. I hadn't looked in the charts to see what's going on with it, but I think it's a big deal for new beginnings. The next one does not happen again until November the 5th of 2025. It is also at 13 degrees Taurus. That's, again, a full moon, supermoon. So that's going to be releasing. And that's going to be after the eclipse series, which is going to be middle of September. So I have a feeling that this year it's going to be rocking and rolling for releases, but also with every ending is new beginnings. So I think that's all going in together. These people wrote some really good stuff. Can't wait for you guys to read it and see what you think. But one of the other things, this guy, he calls himself Sloth Soul Astrologer. I can't imagine what a sloth guy is sitting around doing soul astrology, but he really writes very grounded. I mean, he writes some really good stuff. But he gave a summary of what is happening in the skies that's really going to just, it's very action-packed. And I'm going to go over these a little bit with you because I think they're all pretty potent. But starting in February, March, and April, it's going to be 3 months of just, you got Venus going into Aries, Jupiter direct in Gemini, Jupiter going into Capricorn, then June the 9th, but that'll be later. But February, Mars finally goes direct in Cancer, so we're going to finally get action. A lot of action is going to switch at the end of February. So if you've been on hold, get ready for it to go forward. March 1st, Venus will go into retrograde in Aries. This is really important. Track this. March the 3rd, 2 days later, Mercury enters Aries by the 15th, which is the day right after the first eclipse. It's going to go retrograde in Aries. So you're going to have Venus and Mercury both retrograde in Aries. Both of them dip back into Pisces right before Venus goes 2 days before the solar eclipse on the 29th. Mercury goes in on the day of the eclipse. Both of those back into Pisces, along with who's already been there, but Neptune and Saturn. All of these components are bringing forth any of the main stuff that we need. Mercury's communication, Venus is what we love, Saturn's the work we come here to do, Neptune's the dream. All of these things are assisting us in building the new dream. So then you're going to have Mercury direct in Pisces on the 7th, re-entering Aries on April 16th, Venus going direct in Pisces on April the 12th, getting back into Aries on April the 30th. And Mars enters Leo on the 18th of April. So we're not really going to be able to, I think, have structure and really know the totality of the new dreams and what's happening until we get into May, I don't believe. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a vision of it. You're going to feel it. But there's these whole processes that we're going to be going through. And these are all personal planets, Venus and Mercury and Mars here. I mean, Jupiter's going to expand it going into Gemini on the 4th. But that's internal work we're all doing individually. Then when you look at the bigger picture between 25 and 26, he talks about this is what he says. He says, this is what he means when he says we're having a complete civilization reboot due to the timing of outer planets shifting in and out of the signs in a very short period of time. He says, keep in mind these are slow transiting planets that take time. Actually, this is the first time I've read this part. All the planets are shifting and coinciding in the collective power transformation of Pluto, now being in the early degrees of Aquarius. So I said that. All these shifts are sextile or trine Pluto, which will give much more positive potential, but it may be uncomfortable for the first, or for many are fast-paced, and it's going to be unfolding all at once. So he says, here's the themes. Saturn is world structure and authority figures. Uranus is innovation and technology, the higher mind. Neptune is spirituality and the subconscious mind and media. Pluto is transformation, power, rebirth. Aquarius is fixed air, collective vibration, and knowledge. And that's where we're at, this Aquarian age. Pisces, mutable water, collective emotion, beliefs, faith, and ending cycles. Aries, cardinal fire, individual power, action and new direction, and beginning cycles. He doesn't have that here, but that's what it is. Pisces, Aries, ending and beginning. Taurus is fixed earth, physical reality, and resources. And Gemini is mutable air and communication and changing ideas. He says all that before going into what's happening. March 30th, Neptune goes into Aries. That's the dream and delusion. It's both parts. May the 24th, Saturn enters Aries. That's the work we came here to do. It's going to finally leave all the dark stuff and try to have some new beginnings, but ground it. July 4th, Neptune goes back. It's going to start doing its retrograde in Aries. Uranus is going to go in Gemini on July 7th. Saturn retrogrades in Aries July the 12th. On September the 1st, Saturn retrograde enters back into Pisces. September the 6th, Uranus retrograde enters into Gemini. October 22nd, Neptune retrogrades back into Pisces. November 7th, Uranus enters Taurus. November 27th, Saturn direct in Pisces. November the 10th, Neptune direct in Pisces. So all the way by the end of this year, Saturn and Neptune make it into Aries, but they are still stuck back in Pisces. They don't make it back into Aries until 2026. Neptune re-enters Aries on January 26th of 2026. Uranus goes direct in Taurus on February 3rd. Saturn re-enters Aries on February 13th. So both of them will be back into Aries for the final time. No going back. That's when the door closes. February the 20th, Saturn and Neptune come together in Aries. They're going to be sitting on top of each other next February, over a year from now. But when the two of those come together, you're going to have the work you came here to do, the dream or delusion, all that work is all culminated on February 20th of 2026. Then on April 25th, Uranus re-enters Gemini. So that's a lot of shifting and a lot of energy. In addition to that, he talks about we've never had a Sun-Pluto conjunction in Aquarius since January the 21st, 1779. That's 3 years after 1776 when the United States got its Constitution. He said it was really close that last year, but Pluto was still, this last year for us, but Pluto was still, technically still in Capricorn when the Sun passed it. So the first full exact conjunction happened on the 21st, 6:30 U.S. Central Time. And so he's not saying for sure it's something crazy is going to happen, but well, it's a crazy world. Just look at the world. The point is you got lots of these shifts going on, and it's going to be a year and a half for those things to play out. So take all of that in as far as bigger picture energy. The main thing for each of us individually, though, is to do the internal journey. Who are you? What did you come here to do? And that's what's going to be emerging for all of us in the next year and a half. I mean, especially, though, around this moon and this eclipse time when you've got Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, both of those is what do we love, how do we see ourselves, how do we communicate. All of those things together is the new dream. And so, wow, I didn't expect to go into all of that. This has been crazy. Again, I just go where Spirit takes me. I told y'all this was going to be a big moon, new moon of new beginnings of things. I hope it hasn't been too much. Actually, I think everybody's still with us. We had 21 people. Well, we've got 20 now. So you've all stayed. Congratulations, and gosh, thank you for sticking with that. I mean, I hope y'all can stick around a little bit here for a meditation to really go in and do any final clearing of energies. Just gonna close everything down here. Go in here to the sofa where this is much more comfortable. Because, I mean, we really are going into 0 point for ourselves. And we're doing it individually, collectively. And it's such a potent time. I mean, I didn't mean to go into that much stuff, but I get taken where I get taken. And I think this is something that's going to assist all of you and whoever listens to this call later, because I know it'll get listened to later. It can really just help us go into a deeper creation. And if there's any part of this, this call that has helped you see something you didn't see before, helps you clear something you thought, I didn't know how to get rid of that or clear. I think part and parcel is the same thing. And it's basically getting us all into a new creation, whatever that looks like. So, okay. Well, let's just get still and let's go in. And really, this is one of the most powerful parts of the call, though, because what we're shifting for us, we're shifting for everybody. We shift for everybody in our family. We shift for the world. We really are holding pristine awareness. We are asking for the highest potential of any and all creations, but we're doing it and going in on atomic and subatomic levels of who we are throughout multidimensional awareness. And I've gone into deeper parts of that in other calls. You can go back and listen to some of the other videos with those. And I'll put a link to some of those things too. And I wish I had topics on certain things highlighted in other videos, but I haven't been able to do something like that. But anyway, so let's just go in with the intention, and we'll ask for the entire company of heaven. We'll ask for Mother, Father, God. I'll go through all the ones I normally pull in. So we ask for Mother, Father, God. We ask for all the ascended masters through infinite presence. We ask for the entire elemental kingdoms. We ask for all the ascended masters. Did I ask for them, Martin? No. We ask for the Elohim, the builders of form on the planet. Oh, I did. And we ask for the entire archangelic kingdom. And then we also ask for Saint Germain and the Violet Flame for transmutation of any and all lower frequency energies for ourselves and for everyone else. And we ask for the Diamond Christ light, which is all the adamantine particles to go in on the deep, deep atomic and subatomic levels and layers of ourselves, but also every nanoparticle of everything around us. And then also the 12th golden ray. I always say it's the 12th golden ray. I don't know why. But I always have. So there it is. So just get really still and allow yourself to just fall into this infinite awareness. So feel all of this infinite just power. All of the plasma discharge that has come from our sun, the great central sun, the great central sun, and so on and so forth, that have been coming in to awaken our DNA, that's here to burn off any and all the old miscreations, all of the distorted thought forms and patterns, and just allow that to go into every aspect of you. Let it permeate all of your skin, all of the musculature, the skeletal system, the organs. Let it go into the blood as it pulses throughout your entire body. Let it go into your brain and your heart. Some of you may have meditated so much that your body just buzzes immediately now. You no longer have to work to go somewhere in meditation. You may have such a calm awareness, and you are now that as an embodiment all the time. Just imagine the all that is just entering to the top of your crown chakra and going down through all of the chakra system and going out through your feet and grounding onto the earth and into it. And it's just reinforcing your own toroidal field, where the energy is going in through the crown and out through the feet and then recirculating. Let's go into a deep acceleration of that. And with the heart expansion, allow your heart to just take you and soar. Allow your heart to go into wherever your soul wishes you to go in and explore right now. So have you found a place within your heart and soul that really wants to be met? If you could dream your deepest, greatest dream, what would it be? What if we could dream that everyone could create their highest potentiality, and no matter what the creations were, there's no way that those creations could harm another person, either physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, either consciously or unconsciously? What would that look like? Imagine your DNA being cleaned and purged so completely and going back into a primordial, pristine awareness. Imagine being taken back into the original Adam Cadman body. What if oscillating Lilith, which is the actual points of Lilith, the actual movements, what if she's oscillating and working with your soul on such a deep level to take you back into that primordial awareness? Not to take you someplace dark or hurtful, although true pristine awareness does come from the dark because there's nothing there. And that's what most people fear. They fear the dark. They don't make friends with the dark, the absence of a presence. If the universe birthed from nothing and you birth from nothing, if everything is birthed from nothing, what does that mean for our potential for creation? If we're birthing from no history, if we let our history go, if we let all of the ideas of who we thought we were go, what would that look like? What if Lilith represents that pristine divine feminine of who we should have been able to be as the feminine expression? But yes, she represents the part of us that somewhere throughout all the time-space continuum that got shunned, that was betrayed. What if Lilith's path through Libra and into Scorpio this year of 2025 is there to liberate us, not to hurt us, but to liberate us from all of the old expressions? And that's going to play out in a very unique way for every single human being. If some people still have some really awful karmic debt that has to be settled, Lilith will take them there to go face themselves. That is Scorpio. It's the dark secrets. It's the part of ourselves we don't want to go face. They say 2025 is the year of the snake, shedding of the skin. That would fit in with going through a bardo state. We're shedding our old skins. We're shedding all the parts of us, the miscreations. Can you feel your heart just blowing open, going through such an infinite expansion of awareness? If you and or other people you know are going through any sickness, know that it's just you releasing any toxic thoughts and feelings and energies that have been pent up that are up for renewal and release. All of these energy events take place in the physical. Really go into your entire body as an awareness on all the different levels, the atomic and subatomic, to really feel into the frequency change that you're undergoing. Can you track it? This is what Judith trained me to do, was to go in and feel into that and track it. To know it, to really know the shifts are happening. When you start working with the unseen world all the time, you will always be met. But you have to know it from your heart. Your mind cannot go there. Your mind will know it when the mind is subservient to the heart. But the mind cannot know anything. It's why you cannot solve a mental or an emotional problem with a mental construct. We'll repeat that one again because that's an important one to really know. You cannot solve an emotional problem with a mental construct. It just doesn't work. It's why psychology keeps people trapped, coming back into their minds, attempting to heal themselves, and all they do is chase themselves through the mental game. A psychologist doesn't know how to take you into the core and feel into the core of who you are. Until you go feel it, you will never, ever be able to transcend it. That's the emotional body. It can work in conjunction with the mental body. But the emotional body has to be deeply grounded first. And again, the important part of this to know is that you are doing your own healing work. If you're on this call, there's a frequency here. Everything is frequency. You'll perceive it because your soul is in a place at this particular moment of time to connect with the energy of this particular call, to hear the information on the call, and to either allow it to take you to a place where you've never thought of going before in many of the different thought forms and structures. But it's also a place where if you're ready to hear it and it resonates with you, again, it's a frequency. That's not something that I, as a person, posting a call, am doing to you. I carry a frequency, and everyone that's attending this call live is at that frequency. We see each other. We feel into the collective experience of what we're shifting and doing in that moment of time. The more people that gather, the greater the frequency output. This is a major new moon beginning, the first one of Pluto and Aquarius. This moon is in Aquarius. We're really setting a frequential stage of shifting for the collective consciousness with this particular call. We are not special in that. There are thousands and thousands, probably millions of people around the world doing the same thing. But the main thing to know is that as we hold a collective frequency within ourselves, others will be drawn to it. And for that moment of time, whenever they listen to this call, it has the potential to shift them from whatever reality they are in at that moment of time. But they won't be able to hear and receive everything deeply unless their heart is open to receiving and knowing something different beyond where they currently are. It goes into that same old saying we talk about. The truth is the truth is the truth. And there's eternal truth and there's momentary truth. How much of what has been said today in this call is an eternal truth? Eternal truth will stand forever, and it can be listened to 100 years from now. A momentary truth is true for that moment, and it shifts us from point A to point B. But then we release it when we go into deeper, universal, cosmic truth. So allow yourself to just really bask in this eternal love and infinite light. Let it be your stepping stone and the very place where you will seed your new creation for yourself in this next coming year. Maybe you're already creating wonderful things in your life. But just by listening to a few things here that you may not have heard of before, they can assist you in shifting your reality, even if so subtle of a shift, that it may be the very thing that sparks the next level of a successful creation. It takes you into the true opening of your gifts in this lifetime. I so hope that everything that's been presented here serves you, and it certainly has only been presented at the highest capacity of my immediate moment. And it is my own hope that it will only assist whoever listens to it to bring them to their next moment of self-realization. I'm in such humble and deep gratitude for everyone that's attended tonight. I think we had 21 callers, which is the most we've had, I think, since the April eclipse of last year, which was the third call. I so hope that this really assists you in stepping forth in your life. And as usual, you're welcome to stay in these energies, and you're encouraged to stay in this deep, pristine awareness for as long as you can maintain it. Because the longer you can maintain pristine awareness, the easier it's going to be as your new normal. You'll just stay in that space with everything you do. Eternal love to all of you. Om Shanti.